Jim, I've taken so much of your time. You've been so generous, and your spirit of infectious enthusiasm for comics, man, is what really inspired me on YouTube. Like, I was doing YouTube before I saw Cartoonist Kayfabe. You probably started way before me, or I don't even know what year you started. When did you start that channel?
We started in October 2018, so it's not been that long, about a year and a half.
Okay, so you started maybe a few months before me, and then my show was a reaction to the garbage shows that I see on. I'm no offense to anybody out there on YouTube.
Yeah, garbage. Calling stuff garbage isn't offensive.
No offense to you people who work super hard on garbage, but like, I can't stand. I'm not going to name any specific shows, but there's just a lot of stuff out there that's aimed at an angle that just wasn't my cup of tea. That's all. And I looked at things from a different angle, and I'm trying to just be pro comics and whatever. And that's what I got out of yours. And watching your show was like getting to talk with one of my close buddies who's really deep into comics in a way that I could never have with anybody else in the universe. So I thank you for that. My last bit here is I've got my list right here. This is my Cartoonist Kayfabe dream interview list. Okay.
All right.
Mum's the word. So wait a minute. Speaking of kayfabe, let's go back to my list.
Yes. Let's hear it.
And let's hear out there from the commenters too. Who do you want to see on Cartoonist Kayfabe? Let's pull some of those up. But I'm going to just rattle off this list.
Yeah, keep going.
I want to hear you guys talk to. So McFarlane, you talk to. Bill Willingham. If you're doing writers, get Willingham, please, and talk a lot about elementals, please. Just scratch my elementals itch. Speaking of Jim Shooter, get Jim Shooter in there and just let him talk his head off. And Paul Levitz. Get Paul Levitz in there and talk about DC Comics and everything he's been involved in. Get Mike Richardson. Get Michael Golden, please. And I'm going to drop a name I don't even know. You've mentioned his comics before. And Ed Piskor said, I don't even know if these really qualify as comics. I'm going to ask how much you know about Elliot R. Brown. That's my list. Oh, wait a minute. No. Obviously, you want Alan Moore. Obviously, you're trying like crazy behind the scenes to get Alan Moore to talk on your show, right?
We're doing magic spells and stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, incantations, you're sacrificing animal. Okay, good. Eddie Campbell. Gotta put feelers out to Eddie.
Personally, he's a huge guy for me personally. Like the Alec comics, his autobio stuff, really kind of expanded my mind at a time whenever I was starting to look in that direction and seeing even what he would do with duotone. He was a guy that drew things stylistically that fit the tone of the story, where like he's adapting his style. Good example for everybody would be From Hell, is where you can see where it looks like these old engravings and is like, how could From Hell even work in any other style? Like it's such a perfect style. But he was one of those guys that I started to see style as a storytelling tool because of Eddie Campbell. Big fan.
Well, and there's the new colorized version of From Hell, colored by Campbell, coming out that I've just been waiting for. I'm going to wait for the collective because that's my all-time favorite Alan Moore, and maybe my all-time favorite graphic novel is From Hell. So wait a minute. That's my list. Robert Kirkman too. Gotta get Robert Kirkman, man. Talk about like a commercially minded guy who's deep into comics, and you guys would I think would be a really excellent interview. Other names that came up here, Ed Brubaker for sure. The most underrated guy of that era of Marvel. Talk about Ed Brubaker for a second too, and his indie roots.
That's the thing that I don't know, like he has these two distinct bodies of work and as an indie guy writing and drawing. So plus, like a lover of genre, which I happen to love genre for probably a lot of the same reasons. So yeah, he would be a great guy to talk craft with, I think, as well, to really break down craft, because I mean, that guy's almost like a machine in his production and his productivity and stuff. Okay.
How about John Byrne, man? John Byrne is a towering figure in comics. There's no other way to say that. Kevin Eastman. Did you do Kevin Eastman?
Haven't done Kevin Eastman. Would love to. I mean, so much history with Kevin Eastman. We've talked about the Turtles a lot. We did the Kevin Eastman Comics Journal interview. Might have been I think Tom McFarlane Comics Journal was our first one. We've done a couple of these comics journals where we go through the issue and we really kind of talk through the interview or the articles. Kevin Eastman's is legendary because it's about Tundra. It happened several years after Tundra. And I mean, Tundra lost millions of dollars. You know, like it is legendary because it's one of the few indie comics companies that had a big pot of money and put that pot in the middle. And, you know, legendary figure for a lot of reasons, obviously the Turtles, but Tundra has its own legend, and it's amazing. Like the Crow comes out of Tundra, at least the collected edition, and around the time of the Crow movie comes out of Tundra, but it was right. It starts in Steve Bissett's Taboo, which was published several issues through Tundra. So it goes through there. I think they might have done the collected, you know, they were doing like a couple chapters in a 48-page square bound. That was Tundra. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, the first printing is Tundra. So when he gets rid of Tundra, it's not necessarily because he doesn't have these books. It's just fascinating. Tundra is one of the most fascinating bits of comics history, especially indie comics history, and would love to talk to him about all of this stuff.
I'm just going to flash names, man, because we got one of the sharper audiences in comics. Here's people we want to see.
Ann Nocenti. I'm a big Ann Nocenti fan. I'd be interested in talking to her. You know, she was an editor for a while, in addition to writing some really unique comics. Like her run on Daredevil with John Romita Jr. and Al Williamson is one of my high points in comics. And it's a really different run, you know, like her voice is different than most of the writers that I've read at Marvel. So I'd like to talk to her.
And I can't believe I didn't put Frank Miller on my list too.
Of course.
What's the deal? You're obviously working on that, I would hope.
You know, I want to talk to everybody in comics. There's very few people and Ed talked about it recently. We go to conventions and you end up at dinners with who knows who you end up with. And you almost triangulate what your interests are very quickly. A couple of questions and you're in, like you're locked in with these people. You know, there's so much overlap with creators. So almost any creator that wants to show up is probably somebody I can learn from.
Okay.
Mike Allred, love Mike Allred. Mike Allred, man, I don't know what I should be telling on this show or not, Dan. I was almost out of comics at one point, and Mike Allred connected me to somebody, Courtney Taylor from the Dandy Warhols, who did One Model Nation at Image Comics. And this was around like 2008, 2009, when the economy had kind of tanked and things were really tough for me comics-wise. One day out of the blue, Mike Allred called me to basically connect me to this guy who was looking for an artist to draw his script. And so I did that, and it really sustained me over a tough year. So, you know, many thanks to Mike Allred. I'm a fan of his work. I was a fan of it before then, but directly, he helped me stay in comics at a time that whenever it looked like maybe I was going to be leaving.
All right, George, come on, right? Like,
legendary. You know, all these guys, man.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to spend all day drawing a zillion Avenger heads anymore. So get him in there, man.
Yeah, he's retired now, right?
Dude, this is what I'm trying for real hard with the new Freak Brothers cartoon that's debuting on Netflix. I'm sorry, this is Gilbert. I'm sorry, I was thinking Gilbert Shelton, but I would also love Michael Gilbert, Mr. Monster, right? Love that book.
Yeah, he's somebody I've never met in person. Like that book, but also like all the history that he's brought to that book, like reprinting different Golden Age artists and things like that. Like he'd probably be a fun guy to talk comics history with. Oh,
speaking of which, you got to try to talk sometime to Bob Beerbaum, okay? Because this is a really interesting cat who owned a comic book store in San Francisco in the 70s. He actually employed some of the retailers who are on my Mount Rushmore. Like he gave Rory Root and Brian Hibbs, they've started working for him.
That is fascinating. Wow.
I think we're about out of good suggestions. I apologize if I
saw two that stand out. Scott McCloud and Simon Bisley. Yeah, I'm on board for both those guys. So
Scott McCloud, how awesome would that be? Thank you. And a couple of names. Can you believe, there's so many great names in comics that nobody's heard of that we didn't mention. Neil Adams, Jim Steranko, like the list goes, there's a million that we glossed over that are masters, right? That we're not even bringing up. So,
Ed and I say this all the time. Like we're constantly like the first time we dig into somebody like a Steranko's work or whoever's work. And it's like, why haven't we gotten to this already on the station? There's so many great creators and great comics out there scattered through history and new ones every day. So there's no shortage, man. You'll never run out of great comics to talk about.
Okay. What's Ed say at the end of this show? What's the mission statement again?
Read more comics.